Welcome to APPA's 11th Town Hall on COVID-19. My name is Billy Zidek, APPA Standards and Codes Administrator. Allow me to review a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. All attendees are in listen-only mode. We ask that you utilize the chat box for the Q&A segment of this session. While we attempt to respond to all questions submitted, should we run out of time, responses will be posted to APPA's COVID-19 RAQ, Recently Asked Questions, webpage. We also remind participants to ensure their speaker volume levels are set for your comfort. Our speakers are gathering us from across the continent, and as such, varying volumes will be present. Today's session will award professional continuing education credits as well as ISDs and AIA HSW CLUs. For AIA certificates, please email me at billy@appa.org along with your AIA membership number. Our webinar recording will be posted to APPA's website later this afternoon. Additionally, you will receive a follow-up email within 72 hours providing a designated link to all webinar recordings, presentation slides, as well as information on upcoming webinars and town halls. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce Lander Medlin, APPA's Executive Vice President, your moderator for today. Lander, take it away.
Welcome all attendees. We appreciate your engagement in these town hall meetings as we further explore the impact of COVID-19 on our facilities organizations and the education enterprise. I'd like to thank both our regular participants for continuing to join us and any new folks who decided to do so today. Our prior town halls have been recorded along with answers to all your questions and posted to the APPA COVID-19 website resource center. It is constantly being updated, so please return regularly. And our town hall meetings do occur every Friday at this time with a different target and focus. Hint, next week's is called De-Densifying Your Spaces. It features duos from Duke University and the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Again, thanks for joining the dialogue. We really want your questions. That's what makes this a rich conversation and the special community we share. So post them at any time. At the close of my weekly membership message this past Monday, I said, yet this week we are not only plagued by our present circumstances, a global pandemic, we are also plagued by what has been with us for 400 years, widespread racial inequality. America is in crisis, a tinderbox, shaken to the core. Almost 60 years have passed since Martin Luther King Jr. said in his letter from a Birmingham jail, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Make no mistake, this is a watershed moment. Let there be no misunderstanding. APPA stands for justice for all. It is time to pursue the path of compassion, empathy, and sympathy as the road to real reform, real change. In union, there is strength. Now, with strength of purpose to combat this global pandemic, the novel coronavirus, institutions have been courageously weighing in on a fall reopening. We must continue to prepare our facilities accordingly. That's why we chose this approach today, the next in our series on the road to reopening your institution. Impact of COVID-19. Got questions? Ask the community. It's an open mic opportunity to share facilities, needs, and challenges. These 6 panelists today have each prepared 5-minute framing remarks to spawn this community chat. They will share some institution fun facts, their institution's fall reopening scenario, and associated caveats. And you will see the road to reopening takes many planning paths. So here's the format for today's town hall. I'll provide an introduction to set the context, a reminder of our latest survey to upload your plans and documents to share with your colleagues, set the stage for our community share, chat, and learn, introduce our stellar panel who will provide some framing remarks, Q&A by an open mic by you, I'll conclude with the survey upload reminder, call for images, available resources, save the date, and closing remarks. I've opened each town hall with a compare and contrast of the coronavirus statistics. Since last week, the U.S. recorded just under 1.9 million cases, exceeding 108,000 deaths. Now, right now, that pace has slowed in the United States and Canada, but is growing faster than ever around the world. It is feared the mass protests will reverse that downward trend. We wait and see. You will hear today some details about institutions' plans for reopening, and they are banking on testing kits, contact tracing capabilities, possible treatments, and a continued hope for an early available vaccine. Certainly, social physical distancing still remains our most effective tool for deterrence. So use your head, stop the spread. Many are now adding shields, face coverings, and masks. So, one small ask, please wear a mask. The impact on the economy remains staggering. Another 1.9 million Americans filed new claims for state unemployment insurance this past week, bringing the tally to more than 42 million people. However, I just read this morning that the economy added 2.5 million jobs. It's a surprising upswing. Great. Still, consumer spending fell a record 13.6% in April, and the U.S. trade deficit widened. The hunger crisis continues with food banks laid bare. Children remain in serious peril. All this remains chaotic, unsettling, and uncertain. Yet higher education is proceeding full steam ahead, bracing itself for the mind-boggling public health logistics and its ever-evolving recommendations. The ebb and flow of students, visitors, and the like on and off campus, shifting decision-making processes, and ultimately publicizing their plans. As Michael Crow, president of Arizona State University, said, "Do I have your attention now?" I think so. Hence, our panel will briefly share a few institutional fun facts, their institution's reopening strategy, related caveats, and their facilities response. What we do with our staff and the built environment matters. Yes, the road to reopening takes many planning paths. Let's move to our panel and start with Cristina Sanborn, Executive Director, Facilities, Williams College. Cristina currently leads facilities operations at Williams College, a premier liberal arts college nestled in the beautiful Berkshires of Western Massachusetts. Prior to joining Williams College in 2019, she served as AVP Facilities Management at Northwestern University, where she participated in all facets of facility management leadership. Ms. Sanborn is proud to have served as AVP for a healthy environment at Carolina's healthcare system in Charlotte, North Carolina, an executive sustainability officer for Cleveland Clinic in Cleveland, Ohio. Ms. Sanborn is a registered architect, received her bachelor's degree in environmental design cum laude from Miami University, and a Master of Architecture degree from Columbia University. She is a LEED accredited professional, holds a certificate in the Appreciative Inquiry Change Leadership Model, and completed a fellowship in Tokyo focused on robotics and virtual reality in the construction industry. Ms. Sanborn frequently speaks on leading change, has a passion for positive leadership, values curiosity, and has embraced a personal commitment to supporting equity and inclusion in communities and the workplace. She is a graduate of CBI's Leadership Development Institute, a year-long exploration of equity and inclusion. Cristina, let's hear from you.
Well, thank you for that generous introduction. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I hope this webinar finds all of you well in your locations across the nation. So I don't need to do any further introduction. That's plenty about me. I'm here at Williams College, and as mentioned, we are nestled in the beautiful Berkshire Mountains. It's a rural setting where we are isolated in some ways that add complexity to our response to and for preparation for COVID, the COVID reality that we will be facing as a community. Massachusetts was among the most hard-hit states in the nation, and we've just this morning had our first zero increase day in our county, which is an incredible milestone We're really grateful that we are starting to see the curve bend. However, nestled in a community of just 6,000 people, we have 2,000 students who will be coming here in the fall, should we choose to open, and they will be bringing with them their various viruses from across the nation, strains and illnesses, risks, attitudes, perspectives. And we can anticipate that any type of reopening will be stressful and will present anxiety challenges for faculty, students, and staff alike. It will also be an anxiety for our community. As I mentioned, we are rural. We only have 7 ICU beds in our entire county. Bringing students here and possibly instigating another outbreak in our community would be a serious strain on our health resources. So we're taking this decision very seriously and accounting not only for the risks to our staff and to the students, but also to those communities that surround and support us. Our president, Maud Mandel, will be announcing our plans for the fall at the end of this month. We can't wait for that announcement. And in the meantime, she's had us plan for 2 possible outcomes. We are right now, I say we, and many people across our campus and our leadership, including students and faculty, are serving on committees that are planning for what might be in the fall. And there are 2 possible routes. One is that we have an online semester or whatever time period is appropriate until a vaccine becomes the norm and we can bring people back safely. And the other is to bring students back to campus who are willing, while acknowledging the constraints that that campus life would place on the Williams experience. I'm here today because I host a small group of my peers from the Selective Liberal Arts group. We meet bi-weekly, and it's facilitated by Gordian, which is wonderful. And I can't commend enough the fellowship, connections, ideas, and resources that have been shared in my group of peers. And I think small colleges face a challenge, some challenges that larger colleges do not face. We're often in these smaller communities. We have to take that into account. And even if we are in a larger community, we may not have an associated medical school or hospital immediately adjacent to our campus, which means we have fewer resources to tap into from a public health perspective. We also draw from students from all across the world, and as do most of the selective liberal arts colleges in our network. So we all have the same concerns about the risks to our staff, faculty, and community. So as we've met, there are a couple of things that I think are interesting. We're all facing the same challenges around how do we manage classrooms and think about class load with a 6-foot distancing in the classrooms requirements, and how do we manage the additional cleaning requirements necessary to protect everybody during this time, while recognizing that we may lose staff to either health risks or disease. So we have those constraints like everyone else does, but a few that are unique. And small colleges, many of us do not have a centralized purchasing group that could be helping us source equipment, signage, PPE, hand sanitizer, and other resources that are very difficult to obtain in this time. And I don't know about the other colleges, but I can tell you this particular small college, Williams, has an incredibly vibrant, cross-functional culture on campus, which relies heavily on interpersonal and cross-functional collaboration to create the student experience, the rich dialogue that comes from talking across disciplines. The idea that people will have to stay 6 feet apart, will have to wear face coverings, will have to toe the line on a whole host of recommendations, dining rooms being grab and go or spaced out, wearing face coverings when working with your peers if they don't live in your pod. All of those kinds of constraints are uncomfortable. They're unforgiving to the experience, and they're totally unfamiliar to our culture. I recently wrote a statement about something being required, and one of my leaders said, "I don't think I've ever seen the word required on a single document." let's make it expected. That's a good reflection of the kind of culture we are going to have to overcome if we are going to be able to keep the students, faculty, staff, and community safe upon the return of students, whenever that happens. We also lack robust communications groups in most cases, or they're very small. We have diverse resources, but often they are single-threaded. I worry as a facilities leader about my plant operators, for instance, all of whom are over 60 and who are very difficult and increasingly difficult to source nationwide, let alone in a rural setting like ours. I worry about our custodians who are going to be on the front line of exposure, working with students, cleaning spaces, and how we protect and ensure that they can continue to work under these conditions while keeping the students, faculty, and staff safe in their environments. It's stressful for them. We have a wonderful team. They want to see the students come back. But the kinds of constraints that will be necessary are so antithetical to a vibrant, joyful, liberal arts undergraduate experience that most of our challenges go back to what kind of experience will we be providing no matter what happens this fall. Thank you.
Cristina, you did a wonderful job of highlighting both the similarities and the differences from the selective liberal arts colleges and your own, which is a stellar institution, recognizing the similar constraints from the nature of the disease, and then the beauty of the cross-functional collaboration and ability to talk in an interdisciplinary way was really really at the heart of what this kind of education is all about, and more of us can do better. Making face coverings accepted really was powerful statement versus required. That I think is a great takeaway for folks. And the fact that your unique experience is potentially compromised, but it looks like all of you are leaning into changing that and ensuring that they have the best experience possible, and everybody delivers on that. That's really fantastic. Thank you, Cristina. Let's move to Bruce Neville. He's Vice President, Facilities Development and Management, Arizona State University. Bruce is ASU's Chief Facility Officer, responsible for leading the entire facilities organization. The Facilities Development and Management Department is responsible for all of ASU's facilities, infrastructure, grounds, and janitorial requirements, and manages design, construction, renovation, maintenance, and repairs at each of the ASU's 4 campuses and additional sites. Bruce is an engineer who previously worked as a civil engineer corps officer in the United States Navy. He received a BS degree in electrical engineering from Tufts University and an MS degree in civil engineering from the University of Florida. Bruce, let's hear from you.
Okay, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're at. Nice to be with you. Thank you, Lander, for this opportunity to share some of our best practices. And just to get right to it, I know a lot of folks are going through the same decisions and processes. Just to give you a little background of how ASU attacked this situation, is we chartered several working groups and committees, and really the guidelines for the working groups were, number one, ensuring the health, safety, well-being of our students, our faculty, and our staff, making sure that we're providing the support to our core mission, which is teaching, learning, research, but bearing in mind that whatever plans we come up with, there has to be flexibility and agility just because the guidance is changing. For example, those that have been following CDC, initially the guidance was you should maintain distancing for 6 feet for 10 minutes. Recently that changed to 6 feet for 15 minutes. Initially the guidance was you didn't necessarily need to wear a mask, and then the guidance changed that you probably should wear a mask, if not for your protection, for the protection of others. And so this has been a dynamic and an iterative process. So the one working group that I really want to focus on today was the return to campus facilities folks, and that working group was broken into 7 sub-working groups. So looking at things like furniture distancing, cleaning protocols, PPE, building access, centralizing materials and supplies, and our communication strategy. And so, like I said, this has changed as we went along. We had over 20 different departments represented within this one working group, everyone from health services to EH&S, facilities, OGC, et cetera, representatives from the provost and faculty, and making sure that understanding that when we have one change, it's going to impact the entire university. For example, distancing in density in the classrooms is obviously going to affect, how do we schedule, how many classrooms do we need to offer for a given course? And so it's been a very complex equation, but in the end, we did make the decision after these working groups got together and briefed to the executive committee that ASU is going to open in the fall semester, which for us is 20 August, with full immersion capability. So I should probably explain the different modalities that we look at when we talk about teaching. Full immersion is like it sounds, that's in presence classroom, physical presence. There's online, which we've offered all along, which is more like it sounds, but taped video broadcasts that folks can look at their leisure or relook at multiple times. And then there's the sync mode. And the sync mode is when you're not physically in the classroom, but you're able to view and participate in the class remotely. And so those are the 3 modalities we're looking at with the ability to accommodate full immersion back in the fall semester. And so some of the specifics that we've looked at is classrooms, for example. I know everyone is looking at, well, what's the density requirements, and there's various different models. We landed at 50% occupancy of our classrooms. So the way this will play out is if there is a class which is offered on, let's say, Tuesday and Thursday, that will basically break into maroon and gold, and the class max will be 50%. And so half the class will participate in person on Tuesday, the other half will view in that sync mode remotely, and then flip-flop on Thursday, and the group that was remote will now be in person. So that's on the teaching side, but then there's a laundry list of implications on the facility side as far as what are the cleaning protocols, what is the face covering protocol and the PPE. And so we've developed a playbook, which I won't go into too much detail right now, but is 50 pages long for each of we've broken our university into 10 different facility types. So for each of those types, whether it's the dining hall or the recreation centers or the MUs or the classrooms, what are the specific cleaning protocols? What are the specific face covering? What are the specific EH&S procedures and personal behavior, et cetera? And so fast forwarding, some of the things that I think are specific that are worth mentioning, plexiglass seems to be one of the topics which keeps coming up. And so we've defined what are the standards for plexiglass. Hand sanitizers, of course, is another one. And so we're basically putting over 3,000 hand sanitizer stations across the university, every lobby entrance, every building, basically every floor. Signage is probably the longest lead item for us getting any specific building open. And on any given building, there's hundreds of signs which will be posted, everything from the restrooms for the drinking fountains to occupancy of conference rooms and classrooms. And so it's a very sort of comprehensive playbook which goes into what we call reopening the campus, and everything from personal behavior to cleaning to PPE is addressed in that. Res halls are probably worth mentioning. I know that was a topic that we went round and round on, and I'm sure other folks are debating on how res halls are going to be operated going into this this new norm. For us, our original bed count was about 17,000. Going into the fall semester, we're dropping down to a little over 15,000. And so the basic standard is no more than 2 residents will share a restroom, and also having the capacity of empty rooms or even empty floors if somebody does come up positive, being able to quarantine and isolate them. So I don't want to take up too much time for the group. I could go on into detail about each one of those and each one of those sub-working groups, but suffice it to say that this has been a very holistic, comprehensive planning effort, which was, really for me, refreshing to get to know some of the groups that we don't typically interact with as frequently as we did through this whole planning effort. So we're comfortable. We have a pretty comprehensive plan, but bear in mind that there is the element of flexibility as guidelines change or the truth changes, being able to shift on that. So Lander, let me stop there just to give my colleagues a chance to share their best practices.
Excellent, Bruce. Thank you so much. I took note right early on of your comment about flexibility and agility with these evolving guidance decisions by CDC and the state and local health departments. And it's because we're just not knowing as much about this virus. And so, that's to be expected, and you're doing great with that. The fact that you reflected as a dynamic and iterative process. I like the return to work and the subgroups and your approach on the cleaning protocols. And as a matter of fact, Thomas Waltz asked if the group could get a copy of ASU's cleaning protocols. If you provide that, Bruce, we could post it on APPA's website. We'd be happy to do that when you're ready, but he specifically asked. I also appreciated the different teaching modalities, that there are multiple deliveries and that your classroom and course scheduling are done to ensure dedensification. And then, I love that this whole thing is producing much more collaboration. Your last comment about a holistic and comprehensive planning effort, really terrific. So thank you so much, Bruce. And we have questions on these coming, so that's great. Keep asking them. Lalit Agarwal, Director, Maintenance and Utility Services, University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Lalit has worked at UNL facilities since 2000 in various roles, starting as a graduate assistant. As facilities needs have morphed, Lalit has taken the responsibility for building systems maintenance, utility services, and energy management. He has a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and an MBA. Lalit is an active member of APPA and has earned APPA's CEFP, Certified Educational Facilities Professional Credential. He has presented at the various APPA and Big Ten conferences and is a faculty instructor for the APPA Institute for Facilities Management. Lalit?
Thanks, Lander. Thanks for the intro. Good morning, good afternoon. I'm right at the afternoon mark here in 2 minutes. So I know we are joining in from various parts of the country in different time zones. I will try to be as brief as possible, but as Bruce mentioned earlier, we can probably talk on this topic for days on end. There's a lot of sentiment that Bruce shared that I actually would echo, but I'm not going to try to repeat those. Just a quick timeline of how COVID went through our campus, how we responded. And in a sense, I felt that facilities was ideal to handle this because we do that on a daily basis. We keep dealing with changing environment and we respond to that as we need to. So back in March, when students went to spring break, they did not return from that for university here. And remainder of the school year was performed through remote learning. We had reduced research. Research was limited only to time-sensitive research that already was in progress. No new research was started. And we started using our electronic card access system to limit the number of people that are allowed to enter the buildings. And we were actually monitoring and measuring that on a weekly basis to make sure that people were not coming in. Our facility staff, however, continue to report to work in utilities, maintenance, custodial, all departments doing the regular day-to-day daily service, and also continuing working on the capital projects. During this time, though, when we ended up in a situation where a lot of our buildings were unoccupied, we put them into an energy saving mode, and were able to save about 15% average energy during the months of April and May. In addition to that, we also started getting texts from other peer groups like this that informed us about the risk of bacterial growth in standing water in our plumbing system. So we started a program to flush all our fixtures on a weekly basis. That way we didn't have any bacterial growth in last mile of the pipes. Fast forward to June 1st, which is where we are entering the summer mode. We are actually starting to open the campus a little bit starting this Monday, and research is starting to ramp up again back to normal levels. Students are still on remote learning mode for the rest of the summer, and all the summer camps in Rest Life have been canceled. Facilities will continue working on a normal and maybe even seeing some uptick in activity due to reduced occupancy in buildings. So painting that we couldn't get done because of class schedule, we are able to actually push through some of those areas. Right now, as of last 2 weeks, facility staff is required to wear a face mask when they are on campus in public spaces. When they are inside their own offices or in mechanical rooms, they are exempted from that requirement. The rest of the campus policy is still being drafted as of now. Now, fast forward to fall. In fact, that's exactly the name of the leadership team that they created, called Forward to Fall. They've been working diligently for the last 3, 4, 5 weeks, and they have actually defined what our fall semester is going to look like. So fall semester was supposed to start on August 24th for us. It will now actually begin on August 17th, a week before. But the first week is going to be asynchronous learning, which will allow our students to complete their internship or travels wherever they are. And then the in-person classes will commence on August 24th. When the in-person classes begin, we will have to deal with the same situation as Bruce mentioned for Arizona State, where we will have limited spacing. So some of the classes, depending on whether they are bigger spaces or smaller spaces, we would be between 50 and 70% capacity. So we will be asking some of the students to go attend the lecture from their dorm room or residence, and the remaining will be doing it from in class. So, and then they'll switch between Monday or Wednesday or Monday. In addition, we are actually canceling the Labor Day holiday. Labor Day will be a working day for us, and fall break is also canceled for students. Finals will be completed on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. That will basically mean that when students go to Thanksgiving break, they are gone till end of Christmas shutdown. However, they are creating a new 3-week remote learning session that will be offered from December 1st through December 18th. And that will be all online only. As far as what happens in spring, there is a task force that is being formed to evaluate the content delivery for that period. One unique thing that we did on our campus was running into that situation that most of us are in, where we couldn't find hand sanitizer and disinfectant. Our innovative team in the food processing center actually started making hand sanitizer on campus for university and all other state agencies like the prison system and other state agencies. And we are actually now dispensing this locally produced liquid to all our facilities in, on campus in 1 gallon, 16 ounce, and 8 ounce bottles. As far as the building entrances, which becomes another big challenge, because with the volume of people coming back to campus, we may have to have a new logistical challenge of refilling them. We actually invented, designed, whatever term you want to use, a dispensing solution which is made mostly of a 2-inch PVC pipe and a 3D printed connector that now has a pump on top. And this unit actually holds 3 gallons of liquid, which will reduce our need for frequent refills. And we chose this design because this particular device was using all the parts that were not in short supply due to the pandemic right now. So that's the general summary of what we are planning on doing, what we have done at Lincoln. And with that, back to you, Lander.
Thank you, Lalit. You know, you've done some amazing work on the energy conservation side. And since I'm getting several questions already about the percentage of energy savings, was it 15 or 50, you said?
I would love to see it at 50, but it was only 15.
15, got it. Okay, everybody that was asking, because there were like 4 people asking, so we've got that one done. It was 15%, not the other, which Lalit is right, we would love that. I also think it is fascinating that you took hold of this idea of, okay, we need hand sanitizers, we need stations, we can't get it. And you have gotten very creative and innovative at UNL in saying, we're just going to innovate and we're going to create our own. And if you want, we'll make sure that you get not only a picture of this has provided, but also get some explanation about what they did to make this thing work, which I thought was amazing too, Lalit. So you have done some really, really nice things to get the campus not only reacting to, but now walking into the summer and getting prepared for the fall. So thank you so much. Now I'm going to move to Eric Cagle. He's manager, custodial operations, refuse and recycling, and labor support, the Pennsylvania State University Park campus. Eric started at Penn State in 2007 as the custodial trainer and moved into his current role as manager in July of 2015. Eric graduated from the APPA Institute for Facilities Management in 2017 and is currently working through the APPA Leadership Academy. He was a member of the 2019 ARAPA Host Committee and is currently the Director of Technology and Communications for CAPPA, that is the Pennsylvania State Chapter. In addition, Eric holds the APPA CEFP credential. Eric is IICRC certified in carpet care, hard floor care, and stone maintenance. Personally, Eric resides in Altoona, Pennsylvania with his wife and 3 sons. He enjoys spending as much time with family as he can. He serves as an elected official on Altoona City Council from 2007 to 2019 and coaches Little League Baseball. Eric enjoys experiencing Pennsylvania's beautiful outdoors while hiking, biking, and kayaking. An active life. Eric?
Hi, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Lander, for that. That was very nice. And yes, hello from beautiful central Pennsylvania. I just want to pick up where Lalit left off. We too went home on March 19th, and our students were on spring break. And like Nebraska, they never came back. They finished the semester remotely. And we are also currently beginning to experience a return to research in some of our areas and you know, some of the other administrative facilities and athletic facilities and more. We are anxiously awaiting the president's announcement on June 15th regarding the fall semester. So we don't know what that will look like yet, but part of what I'll talk about next is contributing to that announcement. The Office of Physical Plant has been meeting with their leadership team 3 times per week and going over some working teams, of which I was part of the cleaning and disinfecting working team, but there were working teams with focus on Commonwealth campuses, engineering controls and facility design, major construction and renovation. We're currently working very closely with the reoccupancy tracking group, safety, infection control, and workforce ramp up. So we all had to finish those reports on the 22nd of May and turn them in so that the president and university committees could make an educated decision on what they're going to do in the fall. Like Lander said, I am the manager of the custodial operation, which includes 427 custodians. We also have 27 labor support and waste management employees. And we service mostly the academic, athletic, and administrative facilities. So the housing units, dining facilities, they have their own separate custodial, for example. Some of the committees that we've been working together with have been return to large-scale events, return to athletics. We've had an environmental monitoring and mitigation team that started up yesterday. Much like Lalit talked about with his sanitizer manufacturing, there's a group of engineering professors and grad students that are working on engineering and fabricating PPE. We also have our own sanitizer that we're looking at, but we may steal the one from Nebraska because that one's really good. With regard to the reoccupancy tracking working group, I just wanted to explain that a little further. We're asking for 2 weeks notice for any group that's planning on reopening in order to plan for services like custodial service, water testing, building controls, and more. So we're giving facility coordinators an opportunity to turn these reoccupancy plans in and give the facility time to get ramped up so it's prepared for them to return. But specifically with regard to our cleaning and disinfection working group, I won't go into details. I'll wait for some questions, but we focused on a few things. We developed a cleaning and disinfecting plan, much like I'm sure all of the colleges and universities on this call have done. But we focused on things like infection control for our own employees so that they can be safe, they can social distance. We are requiring masks to be worn during working hours, gloves. We're staggering start and stop times, encouraging frequent hand washing. We are following CDC and the Pennsylvania Department of Health guidelines when it comes to developing our plans, because there are so many different groups out there that have these return to work cleaning and disinfecting plans, and a lot of them actually have some contradictory information. So we've just stuck with the CDC, and we're trying to follow that as closely as we possibly can. The product that we're using as our EPA list-in registered disinfectant is a product from a company called Betco. It's Quatstat 5. And it is a quaternary disinfectant with a 5-minute kill time. That's what we're using. There's plenty out there that work well. One of the things that I've been stressing is that we're using microfiber cleaning tools. In any infection control program, microfiber is by far the best cleaning tool to use, and so we are using that with our mops and our cleaning cloths as well. When we do have a suspected case or a confirmed COVID case in a space, we actually consulted with Environmental Health and Safety. And if there are any members of ISSA, the GBAC, Global Biorisk Advisory Council, had a tip sheet for cleaning spaces like that. So we put those two groups together and we came up with a pre and post electrostatic spraying process where we clean and wipe frequently touched surfaces and then post it for 2 hours. So that we do have that in place if we need it. We also are looking at hand sanitizer placement, like Bruce talked about. We also are looking at close to 3,000 units across campus. One of the things we're going to do to educate occupants and students and help people feel comfortable about what we're doing is we're going to be putting our modified service table on our website so that anybody can go to our website and see exactly what we'll be doing and the types of critical touch points or frequently touched surfaces that we'll be hitting. We are not planning on doing multiple disinfectings per day, and I know that's different from some of the universities out there. We're planning on doing it once daily, unless, of course, we're directed otherwise. But right now, that's what our plan is. To supplement that plan, we've identified an occupant use product. If anybody wants to, kind of do a little bit more cleaning in their workspace, their office, or something like that, and we've standardized that. Environmental Health and Safety is helping us to promote that. We've also developed a safe use instruction sheet so that anybody who's using it can know how to use it properly. Just go talk about staffing quickly, and I'll finish with that. We started on March 19th when we kind of went home, we like to say, with an essential crew of just about 16 custodians and 3 waste collectors. We've been kind of recalling every couple weeks since then, and currently we're up to, we will be at about 40% staffing on June 15th. The goal, if a physical return to campus is going to happen in the fall, is to have all of our custodians back on August 21st. I just wanted to make a couple comments that out of this emergency, I've seen some really great collaboration occurring between units and peers that doesn't usually happen. For example, on our campus, housing and other auxiliary and business service units, athletics, Commonwealth campuses, student affairs, and more have been talking almost on a daily basis, and I think that we'll see that continue. I've also become really aware of how many smart people we have that work there and work across the college and university community all over the country. It's been really encouraging. I'd like to thank Lander and APPA for putting these town halls together each week. They've been a valuable resource. And I'll just end by saying this. I am looking forward to your questions, but I'm probably more interested in hearing from others as to what innovative things you've been doing and will be doing as we move toward the fall semester. So with that, thank you, Lander.
Absolutely, Eric. That was really terrific. I am really taken by the collaborative effort that you have been engaged in on your campus. It's a very large campus, and the advanced work that you did for campus decision makers to actually make an educated decision regarding their final reopening plan. I love that you want to steal UNL's approach to hand sanitizer stations and hand sanitizing period, and I'm sure they're going to give it to us, and I know several people on this call want that too, so we'll make sure you get it so you don't even have to ask that question again. That's what we do. We care and we share, and it's really great. The other thing was the microfiber cleaning tools. There'll be a question about that, and then also your planned once a day deep clean, and then we see an occupant use products availability is a little different, and I think it will be interesting how that plays out, and I think that's really a great point in how you're trying to manage the custodial staffing resources that you have. So good for you. Okay, let's move to Rob Quirk, Facilities Management Consultant, California State University System. Rob has over 25 years of progressive higher education facilities management experience at one of California's largest public institutions. Rob is well regarded in the higher education facilities circles and recognized by his peers as a leader in organizational theory, leadership, labor relations, business processes, and quality improvement. During his tenure at CSU-LB, that's Long Beach, he led the campus facilities organization's maintenance, energy, and minor capital construction program and implemented many process improvements, including a comprehensive facilities information system, facilities condition assessments, and is considered a leader in benchmarking and quality programs in facilities. In addition to his leadership role in facilities at CSU-LB, Rob is faculty emeritus, having taught in the graduate program for public policy and administration in the human resources and leadership course for 14 semesters. He is currently in his 10th year as special consultant to the CSU system, along with dozens of other clients throughout the Western United States. Rob, please share with us.
Well, thank you, Lander, and good morning from California. And a little bit about this.
You might have both mics on, so.
Hello?
So Rob, now you're muted. Come back. On? There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
Anyway, the CSU system has made an early and well-publicized decision to conduct the majority of its classes online for all 23 campuses for the fall semester 2020. Exception requests for in-person learning will be made by individual campuses and reviewed and granted in an expedited fashion by a CSU central office committee that is committed to a clear and concise set of criteria with prompt response to campuses as a priority to facilitate the extensive logistical needs that these exceptions will entail. In regard to the facilities response, planning for these moving targets has not been easy, as we all know. Many of the action plans are tentative and based on a number of factors that include the status of the virus at the start and during the fall semester, the status of the state budget and funding for the CSU, and how that relates to facilities funding. We expect news on that, on these issues in the coming weeks, and plenty of debate on that. The return to work of our support staff, faculty, and administrators under the parameters of social distancing, collaboration with our bargaining units to assure a fair and effective approach to meeting our university mission and employees' rights and safety. That includes 13 different collective bargaining units. And of course, we have a contact tracing of our employees and the methodologies associated with that. Our facilities teams have in place or has plans for the following: campus directional and spacing plans, placards and signage, phase covering guidelines and directions, phased return to work plans, procurement of specialty items for response to the virus and placement of those items. And there's been plenty of discussion and coordination with our procurement office and business offices in terms of using our large size and purchasing power in California to expedite that for our groups. Physical barrier designs and installation plans, classroom, office, and conference room reconfiguration, logistics, adjustment to our task and frequently schedules, and modifications to our preventative maintenance programs and criteria, including what type of products to use, such as air filters, and communications and training plans. So with that, there's a commitment to quality services at whatever level is provided. And right now that's somewhat in flux. It really depends on the exception list, how much of the classes are going to be on campus, how much are going to be remote, and what our campus population is going to look like. So our facilities teams and leaders are planning for quite a few different scenarios in varying degrees and prepared for just about anything. We are aware of the need to continue to measure and track our performance, so it'll put us in a position to know the impact of our decision in the coming years and months. The CSU facilities executives continually discuss the importance of leadership and staying focused on the outcomes and the impacts of our decisions. The distractions are many, but our leaders are remarkable. Sound leadership is the foundation of our plan, and any plan, for that matter, for a successful management of the program. So with that, I really look forward to any questions, and that's all I have for now.
That's great, Rob. Thank you so much. You know, I think everybody should recognize now from what you had to say that this idea of moving to fully online sounds easy. You know, oh, we'll just do that. And that's not the case. And I think you outlined why that's not the case and a lot of the different scenarios that you're planning for in order to be prepared. That was really an eye-opener. The detailed adjustments that you're making to tasks and frequencies and plans, yet the continued commitment to quality delivery. I know that is paramount from you. I've known you for years, and that is absolutely critical because that is ultimately your value. And then the final comment about leadership is critical for success. Couldn't be more important today amidst this global pandemic. So I'm really pleased to hear that you see that there, that you have that there, and we can look to that as we move forward. So great job, Rob. And now we have Ted Widener. Ted is faculty, Division of Construction Engineering and Management at Purdue University. Ted has been interested in buildings since a visit to Monticello in his youth. After earning degrees in architecture and engineering, he moved from managing one building project to increasing responsibilities and over 30 years of leadership roles in higher education facilities at 6 different institutions. Now he teaches at Purdue University in the Division of Construction, Engineering, and Management, where he is developing a program that focuses on facilities and infrastructure. Dr. Widener is a frequent writer on facility issues in higher education and is active in APPA, serving on its Educational Facilities Professional Certification Board for 6 years, editor of the APPA Operational Guidelines Building Maintenance 3rd edition, and is co-leading the Data Integrity Working Group for APPA 1000 TCO, Total Cost of Ownership standard. He is on the United States ANSI team developing international standards for facilities management. Ted, talk to us from that faculty perspective now.
Thank you, Lander. As a former facility officer and now faculty member on the dark side, I will attempt to present a different perspective to the campus response to COVID. Following travel restrictions beginning in January this year and moving to total travel shutdown for all Purdue employees, the university announced instruction would occur online to complete the spring semester. The university faculty had about 10 days to move their classes online. Not easy for some who still use chalk. There were some successes and some less so. In April, a Purdue student was the first in the nation to bring a lawsuit for a tuition refund. Student surveys show some dissatisfaction. While not directly related, on May 26, Purdue's president, Mitch Daniels, said, "Not reopening in the fall would be unacceptable." He has also said failure to reopen would be unscientific. Purdue has a record number of students entering in the fall, concentrating 45,000 students and over 10,000 faculty and staff into 2,600 acres. Facts about Purdue's COVID changes can be seen at protect.purdue.edu. Rather than having me give you anything else, just look at that website. It includes the Protect Purdue Pledge, which says to protect myself, to protect others, and to protect our Purdue community. I'll describe a few from my perspective. Densify is a common goal. Staff who can work remotely are encouraged to do so. Offices and laboratories will have reduced occupancy, which may result in some time sharing. Classroom occupancy will be cut in half or more, no more than 150 persons in a lecture hall. Residence halls are similarly de-densified with a minimum area per bed and distances, which has resulted in about a 6% bed loss. Public restrooms have been reduced in occupancy. More on that later. Corridors and stairs are now labeled with arrows to separate opposing traffic. Face coverings are mandated indoors except in private offices. There are mandatory training programs for research laboratories and training on campus in general. The university plans to test everyone before the start of classes and to do contact tracing when a person with COVID has been identified. Annual influenza vaccination will be required with a goal of 100% immunized or vaccinated within 30 days of the vaccine being available. Personally, I prefer face-to-face instruction and having students on campus. They keep me young. But I am also not alone in having some concerns. Faculty are to teach a minimum distance of 10 feet from students. When that's not possible, portable shields are supposed to be available and potentially face shields. All courses will be available online for those who cannot attend class. This is extended to new international students who have been accepted but cannot enter the U.S. as of the school year. In most classes, presentations are already recorded and available online, with some having video. But lavalier microphones are now an issue. There's a big burden on faculty who are in charge of the curriculum and how they deliver it. Many are doing a major rework of their classes. I've been in a lot of meetings discussing issues of educational quality in this environment and some teaching challenges. We have received regular email updates and had several town halls with department heads, deans, and the provost. In fact, there's one starting in a couple minutes. A recent faculty senate survey asked several questions in preparation for another forum and solicited questions anonymously. I asked a question and I'll out myself to those listening. It goes back to the public restroom occupancy reduction. In the restroom I use most frequently, there are 8 fixtures. To provide appropriate distancing, there are only 3 available, the ADA fixtures. But as good facility officers and building designers know, the number of plumbing fixtures in a building is specified by the plumbing code to provide for public health, safety, and welfare. With a 60% reduction in fixtures, I asked if the COVID changes are based on a corresponding building occupancy reduction, or if there's coordination with local authorities because building codes are recognized by local law. The forum is next week, so I don't have a response to share. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share a faculty perspective.
I'm thrilled that you did that, Ted. You really did give us a different perspective coming from the faculty. Purdue was really out front quickly on going full face-to-face, and I think the faculty also came out pretty quickly and said, wait a minute. So that was out in the papers, and I did read about that. But it was fast and it was difficult. I've heard really good stories about how well the faculty did under those circumstances. And you can tell, even though you're going full face-to-face, just like Rob talked about, fully online, there's still all the multiple deliveries given the choices that faculty or students will need to make. Your international students you brought into play was really terrific add. And that you're going to attempt to do that asynchronous and synchronously. So there are so many aspects to this, and making sure that we pay attention to OSHA guidelines, et cetera, as we de-densify these bathrooms and some of these other public spaces will be an important element to all of this so that we don't get blindsided there. So I really appreciate it. So we're going to go to Q&A now, where I'll be asking the panel to respond based on your questions in the chat boxes. I'm going to ask Billy to open a participant's mic to be able to ask the panel a question. And so if you have a specific person you've identified, that's fine. If you don't, I will direct it. So we might, and I really ask that you state your question briefly and succinctly so we can get to as many of your questions as possible. So Billy, I'm going to start sort of at the beginning of these with Jeff Hurtado. Jeff, he's at the beginning of this. You want to open his microphone. And Jeff, you had a question about safe zone standards? So I'm going to ask for him, as that didn't quite work as well, but panel, I'm going to go to Bruce, if you could think about that, and maybe even Cristina on safe zone standards for determining classroom and lab capacities. Have you thought about that, Bruce? And then I'll go to Cristina. Bruce?
Thanks, Linda. Yeah, we sure have, and that sort of goes back to my one comment in regards to flexibility and agility, that we, through the planning process, went through various models. There was one that came out that basically drew a bubble around each individual, and if you did the math, it came out to about 48 square feet. And we went through each of our, let's take our classrooms for example, and looked at the max seating configuration, whether it was for an auditorium or a standard classroom, and drew and calculated if we had a 6-foot bubble around each individual, what would it equate to as far as distancing? And through the planning process,
versus actually looking at the floor plan of each room resulted in pretty different results if you want to have true 6-foot spacing. So we're actually laying a grid over each floor plan where there's no other way to describe it but to say that at the intersection of the grid is the nose of the student as a way of identifying where we can place furniture with an 18-inch minimum at the perimeter, so that it essentially gives a 36-inch space for the person closest to the wall, 3 feet from the faculty member to the wall and 6 feet from the podium as a minimum. So it's usually end up being about 10 feet in the front of the room. What's interesting that we had to go through is that we actually don't have great as-built. We have historical drawings that have not been maintained. So we've had laser scanning folks out for the last 2 weeks, crawling all over campus and getting accurate floor plans and measurements for every classroom on site. And then additionally, not just the classrooms, but we're also looking at all of the other potential classroom spaces on campus. So for instance, a black box theater or a dance studio that could be a larger space that might be able to host classes in a COVID reality that would normally be reserved for other functions. So class capacity is one constraint on the classrooms. And the second constraint is how long do we need to wait between classes? So we are in fact requiring face coverings and for all occupants on campus, faculty, staff, students, everybody, visitors, which we're limiting if we go forward with this reactivation. And we are looking at the CDC guidance on how much time do we need to leave the room idle in between classes to ensure that we are protecting one class from the next class, so we don't have a contact tracing nightmare of, hundreds of students having had interactions that we can't quite articulate. It's a conservative approach, and it would require us to put some significant minutes between classes. We haven't decided on that yet, but I sure would welcome anyone who has figured out the secret sauce for that one, because both capacity and time are resources. How long during the day will we teach? How many days a week will we teach? How will those slots be assigned? How will the faculty respond to those assignments? We have a lot of questions yet that we're still working on with our myriad teams.
That's terrific. And you really did give some valuable insight to this in details, which I think are really important for folks. William Dillard, you had a question about reopening plans that I can answer. And that is, APPA has a COVID resources website where we are posting the reopening plans. We've gotten 30 or 40 of them and are posting them by institutional type. Those will probably go live come around Monday or Tuesday. So these will be available. And if you need something quicker, just let us know and we'll get you what we already have, because a number of them are already posted, William. So I wanted to make sure I answered that. Eric Backus, you had a question. And I think it's around classroom. Can we open Eric's microphone? We're trying to do that. It doesn't seem to be working too great today. So I'm going to ask in order to keep moving. And that is, Eric was asking, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is Eric Backus, Clarkson University. I'm also a fellow faculty member. My question was, what are you doing to think about classroom entry and exit, specifically getting students in and out of the classrooms? And then, of course, related to that would be the hallway queuing before and after class and class layover time in between classes. And then Ted partially answered this, and his answer was about, overall general campus circulation of people. He's talking about arrows, but how are we going to control that? And what have you been doing to think about those things?
Okay, excellent. So maybe we could ask Lalit. Lalit, do you want to chime in on that? And Eric, you may or may not have been engaged in that. Let's see, and then I'll circle back.
Yeah, so we, as I mentioned, we have a Fall to Forward committee, and one of the subcommittees in that is space management. So some of the topics that were earlier discussed about classroom size is one of their areas, and they are looking at all the metrics that were mentioned, square footage of the room and Also, they are looking at the situation of what kind of furniture, if there is a fixed furniture in that room, how can we mark them off with some people can sit and some cannot sit. But if there is a modular furniture, then how can we reorient it ahead of time? As far as the hallways, we are starting to engage our building maintenance reporters, as we call them, on our campus. These are the people that are really staff of the department, but they are really our eyes and ears in the units where if there is a hot cold call, typically it's not the student that requests or the faculty, it's usually through these building maintenance reporters we get that information. So we are engaging with them to figure out what are the congestion points on a typical semester. And if there is a situation where specific entry or exit, which typically is the same in normal case, is going to be the pinch point, we may make it an entry only or an exit only with some signs. And that will probably take a little bit of learning, but eventually we'll get to a point where people start, the students and faculty will start using a specific door for entry and a different specific door for an exit. With the hybrid approach we are taking in terms of half the population shows up on Monday and half the population shows up on Wednesday, and they swap between online and in person, that will automatically reduce the density factor most of the time. But that's the other thing we're doing. Outdoors, we are also looking at traffic patterns where we may designate a certain sidewalk in a sense of one-way interaction. So even if people are trying to maintain the 6-foot distance following each other, if you have cross traffic and it's a narrow enough sidewalk, they will still come much closer to 6-foot distance. So we may also designate one-way sidewalks depending on the high traffic areas.
Excellent. That's really terrific. Thank you so much for that, Lalit. Rebecca, you had, Rebecca Walton, you had a question about signage. Do you want to ask that, or you want me to do that? So I'm going to go with it, and I'm going to ask on behalf of Rebecca Walton. She was asking about signage and whether it's been fabricated on site. Cristina, do you have any of that happening? Because I think Lalit talked about possibly some of that, but Cristina, are you finding that places to purchase it are fabricating on site for signage?
So we actually, because we are small, we don't have our own in-house sign shop. Rather, we use a local vendor who has been wonderful to work with to help us prepare our closing signage, right? We had a lot of closing signage for outdoor resources and things that we had to produce over the past couple months. We haven't started producing our signage yet, in part because the decision is not yet made, and in part due to something that I didn't mention in my opening remarks, was that in Massachusetts, and I don't know about the other states, have not released very specific guidance for us. So we are betwixt and between in terms of looking at the pretty general guidance that the CDC has offered, the very general guidance that Massachusetts has offered, and also referencing the Connecticut guidelines, which are wonderfully detailed and give us a lot to think and talk about. And each one of them have, as was mentioned earlier, sort of different guidance on what signage needs to be where and why. So just in the past 2 weeks, we've split that concept, that whole concept of how do we produce, distribute, select, word, design, produce, distribute, and maintain signage across campus. We're going to have to mark a lot of sidewalks because we're going to have limited dining hall capacity. So we know we're going to have queuing at food. So we're going to have, I'm hoping, circles, because I think that's the quickest, the best way to mark social distancing on the floor. But then we have to test them and make sure they're going to work in our climate. We get cold winters. We have shoveling. We have to worry about marring floors, et cetera. So we have a group that's working right now on researching all the different vinyl we might be able to use. How can we apply signage in places where we don't have great walls? what kinds of stanchions are out there and might be most useful. So this is an active conversation right now. And for me, the display is the bigger question than the sign itself because we have that local vendor.
Excellent. That's great. Lalit, are you fabricating on site?
Yeah, we have a print shop that does all the printing for us, and we have our environmental health and safety department that's actually trying not to reinvent the wheel. We are actually stealing from CDC posters and branding it with our university logo and other information, but we are basically doing our R&D, ripping off and duplicating.
Okay, good. And Bruce, are you guys fabricating?
Yeah, we sure are. You know, we've got it broken into packages, whether it's a large building or small building. And so we fabricate our own signs. Just to put it in perspective, a large building is around 230 signs, and they go everywhere from security desks to restrooms, to elevators, to stairwells, etc.
This is a big issue. I'm telling you, everybody, it really is a big issue. I appreciate the differences between what Cristina is dealing with local vendors and the others. Now, I want to go to Eric because the microphone thing seems to be delaying. So I'm going to go to Eric on a couple of questions. Did you have staffing increases in custodial? I think you said no, you're trying to hold it by doing exactly what you're doing. Is that correct, Eric?
We are holding it to a certain extent, but we did have staffing increases. On March 19th, when we kind of just scaled back everything to only essential, we had about 16 custodians and 3 waste collectors out of 427 employees. So then on May 4th, we added another 30 custodians, and this was all based on supporting remote instruction. So some professors were using GPCs to conduct their remote learning from. And as well as essential research, there was a process where EHS vetted research that needed to come on campus and conduct it on site. And then lastly was business continuity facilities such as steam plant or a computer building or a healthcare building. So those were the 3 types of facilities we were servicing when pretty much everybody else was off. As we started to ramp up a little bit, we actually, as of June 15th, we'll have about 150 employees. So, and most of that is a ramp up of research. So we've had 4 recalls of employees in incremental, steps.
Terrific. And Eric, JB Messer, Suzanne, you want to try to open JB's line? We'll try this again.
Is it working?
JB, is that you?
Yeah. Do you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I think, Lander, my question is, I mean, I find it interesting across the country of from one end of the spectrum to the other of what people are doing for the fall. But here at in the community college system, we're also dealing with starting summer 2 classes, and here at the end of the month, and starting laboratories, and then looking at a hybrid approach going into the fall, according to what makes sense. But our major concern is how, with the guidance that's out there, there's a number of tools. There's CDC decision-making tools. Our Pennsylvania Department of Education just provided a document for us to utilize for higher education. But with all of those, really nothing there that says, oh, this is what you need to do between uses of the classrooms and laboratories.
Okay, so let's ask the panel. Okay, so I'm going to start with you, Eric, how you're addressing sanitizing of classrooms or labs between classes, because I don't think you are.
No, that's right. So we referenced the same documentation, and one of the big things that came out to kind of support what we were planning on doing was the CDC's report a couple of weeks ago that said that the virus the spread of the virus is really not very successful on surfaces. So and then it did recommend at least a once daily disinfection. So because of limited resources and the fact that we have some other things to do to maintain the buildings, we decided that we were going to go with that guidance. Now I do know that in some return to instruction teams and some of the other university committees that are focused more on student return in classrooms, they're talking about all kind of things. Like they've talked about giving students wipes, so that in between every class they could potentially wipe their seat. But a counterpoint that was brought up was, on the other hand, some students aren't even willing to wear masks. They've surveyed the students, and some students said, I wouldn't want to wear a mask. So we're hoping that they focus, that we focus on the ways that we can cut down kind of the biggest bang for your buck, not focusing so much on the weakest way that the virus can spread, but maybe some of the ways like wearing masks and social distancing. And so hoping we put most of our resources on that. But
okay.
But we're waiting for some direction from some of those other groups.
Okay, very good. Cristina, you're sort of on the opposite end of that spectrum. Are you doing the disinfecting between classes? Is that your approach at the moment?
No, our approach is that we're going to provide what we're calling exchange caddies in each classroom. We're going to be putting a little kit in each classroom with disinfectant, microfiber cloth, a couple of masks because the students will be required to be wearing a mask to be in class. And I would add that Williams, along with other colleges, are developing a student sort of health commitment that basically says this is the expectation. You will be tested. You will wear a mask. You will obey. So that we have some teeth that we can, some confidence that folks who are on principle not willing to wear a mask know that they're going to be expected to do that. But yeah, we're planning on providing these little exchange caddies, and then they would be once a week exchanged. So because our disinfectant has a 7-day mix requirement, so we'll have those in classrooms, conference rooms, and in multi-user restrooms in residence halls.
Okay, excellent. That's terrific. Thank you. Now, Lawrence Barkley had a question I want to direct to Rob and Ted. Let's see. Now, he's down further in this list of people, I think, Suzanne. It's around screening, access, contact tracing, treatment. We can get to him. Let's see if we can open it.
Yeah, Lander, I'm here.
Good.
Yeah, the question is, to what degree are the touch points with the whole testing, screening, access control processes? What are the touch points for FM? And a corollary, those who are going to have face-to-face classes in the fall, are they dedicating quarantine dorms and infirmaries as we've seen in Arizona?
Okay, great. Rob, what do you think? Because you have a very different scenario, but you're planning for all of them. So what do you think?
Well, in the CSU system, there's no one size fits all because there's such a vast difference between, say, Humboldt and the northern part of California versus San Diego. We've got a 1,000-mile distance, and we've got 1,000 miles of differences of opinions and local scenarios. So we're really following local guidelines in terms of our health departments for cities or counties associated with each university in the system. So there is no one size fits all, and we've got a little bit of everything. So these are more local decisions with some system-wide recommendations. And so I can't really say I can give you a single answer for the CSU system.
That's okay. And that's exactly what I wanted people to hear, because there is no one size fits all, right? Ted, do you want to weigh in on that one?
Sure. The university has a vet school with some testing capabilities and a pharmacy school. So my sense is that a lot of the testing is going to occur through one or both of those two areas. And the Purdue Global has an online no charge cost for contact tracing. I think they said it's about a 6 or an 8-hour course that anybody can take and get a certificate in contact tracing if you're interested. I'll have to look up the website to get you linked up to that. And then recently reported, and I think it's in the Protect Purdue website, is that the university is going to have about 500 rooms set aside to isolate any infected students.
I can chime in too from a small school perspective.
Go ahead, Cristina.
Yeah, we're going to require testing upon arrival, and I mean literally upon arrival. So we're going to have to retool, if the students come back, we're going to have to retool the way they enter campus through single points of access. We're going to have to stage the arrival. We think it's going to be, we can handle, based on our local health resources, they can process about 200 to 300 tests a day. So we can only bring in 200 students per day. So we would stretch out our sort of move-in period to allow that to happen, as well as constrain it so that our perimeter is less porous than it's typically been in the past. No visitors on campus, so parents would leave their students at that point. They would be tested, issued face coverings, and then placed immediately into quarantine until their test results are complete. Right now, the testing takes up to 48 hours to process. So the students will have a pretty boring first day or two on campus, but that's what it's going to take. And then we will test them again in 10 to 14 days. Again, this is following the Connecticut guidelines, which are just beautifully explicit about that. And then we have to devise an ongoing testing plan. We will test all of our faculty and staff who are student facing before classes begin. And for all of those populations, we're going to need to have some kind of ongoing testing protocol. And again, because we're a small school, we don't have an affiliated healthcare system. So we have to collaborate really closely with the, quite frankly, very small hospitals in our county. I think I mentioned earlier, we only have 7 ICU beds for our entire county. We're very rural. So we have to be very, our move-in process and testing process is going to be entirely dependent on what our local health resources can handle.
Got it. That's really excellent. I think that you actually, the three of you, provided some good responses to some other questions that we had gotten. And since I'm running so close to the end, I thought I would give some folks some answers here. That we will get Lalette's information on UNL sanitizer stations, how they prepared the sanitizer that goes in it, and any issues that I have, we'll make sure that that gets out to folks, because there were questions on that. I'll also be asking Eric to provide us some information on his approach with microfiber cleaning products, the actual ones themselves, and how he sanitizes them. So we'll get that for you. Thomas Shewan, you had weighed in on that, and Anthony Simpson, you had as well on a number of these questions. Both Thomas Shewan and Byron Chafin had asked about cleaning coils and HVAC systems and air handling systems and the improvement to indoor air quality. NC State has already posted to our site a wonderful Excel spreadsheet of every system and all the system protocols, the running through the paces that they're doing. I think you will find that enormously helpful as a tool that you could use to understand exactly what they're doing on the trade side to make that happen. So I think I'm going to go to close now. We've done a pretty darn good job here, team, fielding these questions, and I appreciate everybody's patience with our approach to this. So just a quick reminder that we have a survey tool open for uploading your documents for your scenario plans, your space type reconfigurations, departmental policies, protocols, and practices. So everyone, we have all of those available to you on the website. And if you have them, you want to give them to us, just send it to me, lander@appa.org, or communications@appa.org if that's easier. We'll close that survey on Monday, June 8 at 10 p.m., but we are getting the website geared up for reopening guidelines pages by institutional type. I think you're going to love it. We have a standing call for images on COVID-19 engagement. There's another slide on our available resources, which are plentiful. Please note that our save the date for our next week's topic is de-densifying your spaces. That's on June 12. with the duos, then and the following week on the 19th, we'll have some institutional duos that look like Spelman, a very famous HBCU, University of North Carolina, Charlotte, Johnson County Community College. It's going to be really, really good. We have a big opportunity on on Wednesday, June 10 from 1 to 2:15. That's Wednesday, June 10 from 1 to 2:15 Eastern Time. Internationally renowned Stephen M.R. Covey will offer a special 75-minute live stream presentation for APPA paid members only on leadership and trust. So you should have received that notice already, and it's coming out a couple more times. Oh, pain from a pandemic, pain from cultural realities. The only wrong thing is to say nothing. Just start with a simple, I care about you. That single, sincere statement can and will lead to an amazing conversation if you will lean in, listen, and hear for the first time. Let's use our voices to make change happen. Long live love. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. We hope to see you next Friday. Bye-bye.